Hey everyone, welcome back to another episode of the Millionaire Real Estate Agent Podcast. I'm Jason Abrams, and this is the place where we lift the curtain on the world of real estate like never before. Every week, I sit down with visionaries, pirates, and mavericks. We're here to document, demonstrate, and most importantly, demystify their game-changing models and systems. What secrets propel them to the top? And how are they living their dreams? This is about passion, it's about strategy, but above all, it's about real, tangible success. So buckle up and let's dive in. This is the Millionaire Real Estate Agent Podcast. Friends, you know that person in your life that always makes you smile, that always has a way of answering a question that makes you laugh, that you think should have been a stand-up comedian instead of an award-winning real estate agent? That is who we are interviewing today. This show is focusing on a gentleman that went from house painter to millionaire real estate agent. His team perennially does $116 million plus a year, but here's the coolest part. It's 100% built on relationships and referrals. And I am speaking about none other than Richard Schulman. He is going to teach you exactly how to build deeper relationships with your database and thrive regardless of market conditions. Sit back, buckle up. This is Richard Schulman. Richard, how are you, sir?
I'm great. I'm really excited to be here.
It's an honor for us to have you. And by the way, man, you've had a tremendous amount of success for many years. How long have you been in the industry?
I never wanted to get here. This is my 21st year, but here I am.
You've been doing it for a long time, and you're running just a mega business, right? I mean, over 165 million annually and perennially. And I want to jump into that, and I really want to unpack it. But before we do, I want to talk about the journey to get here. So, Richard, how did you find 21 years ago the greatest industry in the world?
I was a painting contractor. I know that's not believable, but that is true.
You're kidding.
I did one of those, it was called Student Works Painting and then Varsity Painting. Some people may be familiar. It was like a college painting business. And it actually looks just like a KW model team. I didn't know it at the time, but I ran the business. Then I realized I was really good at sales and really bad at production. So I got a production manager and I ran 4 crews of painters under the production manager and a few door knockers. I mean, it's just to turn paint into real estate. It's real estate.
I want to go back even further. When you were a little Schulman, were you running around with a paintbrush in your hand with a desire to add color to the universe?
No.
What did you want to do?
I always wanted to be like in business, whatever that meant. And so in college, I was in college in the early zeros, if that's what we call it. And everyone I knew who was making $100,000 a year, everyone was doing investment banking. And I wanted to do investment banking. I even did a summer internship in venture capital and I hated it. And they told me I was not cut out for it because it's a lot of sitting behind a desk playing with spreadsheets, which is not my jam. And even though like they told me this is not a match and I didn't like it, I was like, oh, I'll just do investment banking because everyone's doing it. And then we had the little .com bubble. And when I graduated college, there was no investment banking jobs, at least not at the entry level. And so I had to get, I guess we'll call it a real job painting houses.
How did you feel? So you go, you get a higher education degree, you're going to be in mergers and acquisitions, you're going to be VC, you're going to be an investment banker, and now you end up in the painting business. What did your contemporaries around you think of the journey that you were on?
I think they thought it was strange because I did it while I was in college and then after it for about a year. So I think everyone else was like, oh, well, like we're doing other more fun things. We're not like door knocking homes on the weekend and we're not hiring painters. That's a whole other podcast. How do you hire painters to paint houses in the Bay Area in 2000? I can't even really say it on video, but that's a whole other thing. So it was not what other people were doing.
And do you come into that business actually doing the painting, or did you come in as the rainmaker, lead generator, manager from step one?
They bring you in as the rainmaker. My job is to sort of be responsible for everything. Again, no different than the current job, but as part of it, you take a 3-day with Kelly Moore Paints in the Bay Area, California. You take like a 3-day home painting course. And home painting is very simple. And sometimes Guy calls in sick, you're the painter and the door knocker, right? It's like if your TC calls in sick, you're the TC unless you have a better plan.
So let me ask you this, and the world wants to know, Richard, is it to coat or to cover?
Oh, I don't know that we ever really dealt with that. We would sell you 3 coats of paint.
That's what you buy. You buy 3 coats. Okay, so let me ask you this. What do you learn in the painting business that ultimately helped color the way that you see the business world today?
We thought there was going to be a recession in the area. And, this is 2003, 4 in the Bay Area. There's a lot of dot-com bubble turbulence. And we think, oh, this is bad for business. I have a production manager. I own all this equipment. I have all these painters. You have to keep your painters hired even when it's like in the Bay Area, it's rainy for like 3-4 months. You can't really do a lot of painting. Interior painting is a real mess. You really don't want to get into that business because it's too much liability. So you have to really stretch to keep your guys hired over the winter or they'll go find better jobs. We just painted this one house in North Berkeley and I was kind of busy at the time. And when you're busy in construction, what you do is just give them a really high bid. You're like, well, if they take it, great. And if they don't take it, that's okay too. Because painting is really like immediate. It's not like I'm planning a paint job for 3 months. It's like, my wife said the house needs to be painted. Can you start tomorrow? So we threw this guy a huge bid and I found out he was flipping the house and kind of like put a little seed in the back of my brain, as it were. And then the painting business got a little tougher and I moved back home to LA and got into real estate. But, I just remember that guy, he was flipping the house. He didn't really care what he paid to paint the house. And I'm like looking at myself, and I totally respect people who do a real job like construction or painting. Like my hands are covered in paint. My wallet's covered in paint. Everything I own has paint on it. It's just not what I wanted for me. And so I moved back home to LA, got my real estate license.
When you get back to Los Angeles, you decide to get the real estate license. And it sounds like in large part to you have seen this flipper, you realize there's a lot of money in it. Were you thinking of being a builder, developer, flipper, or were you thinking I'm going to get in and represent buyers and sellers?
I wasn't doing a lot of thinking because I'm probably 22 at this time. I didn't have better job prospects and I knew I didn't want to paint houses. And so I'm like, I'll just get into real estate. I think it was like very vague to me. I think I thought that if I got into real estate, I would learn the business and then be able to do something else with the business.
And do you have success right off the bat?
No. So my parents actually paid for my training class. So most people do like the online now. I went to a live training class, which is going to sound very bizarre to your audience. And it probably wasn't even that expensive. It was like Tuesday nights in a shopping mall from like 6 to 9. And the trainer, this is 2003, 2004 range. The trainer is this guy who's been in real estate for a long time. My only memory of that class is him just screaming at you, if you're not making $100,000 by the end of year 1, quit.
Wow.
That really stuck in my head. Yeah.
All right. So now you get the license and you get into it. What happens?
Just crushed it out the gate with no sales. And after 9 months, I think I was probably in the back of my head thinking about doing something different. I took an up call, a floor call, which I don't think people do anymore, but this is really like back in my day.
Man, Richard, I just want you to know you're so old. And I don't want to sugarcoat it for you because the audience knows I'm a transparent guy. It's so funny because my first deal came off of a floor call also. So for some of our audience, why don't you quickly describe what floor time is?
They would have the new agents answer those calls because the experienced agents don't want to sit there. But for me, I was like, anytime you have floor time, I'll come and sit at the front desk for 2 hours and answer calls. And I made 7 sales that year. I won Rookie of the Year in a really big office. It was the number 2 office in the system after the Beverly Hills office. So it's a big deal. And I made 7 sales and like 4 of the 7 sales were off floor calls. Now people have realized that you can just pay for the signs and capture all those leads yourself.
I never jump in this early in an episode, but did you hear what he just said? He talked about a time when floor time was the answer for the new real estate agent. I just want to tell you, I do not think that idea is passé. Remember, floor time was simply, I answer the phone when it rings. There's this idea in the real estate industry that somehow there are less sign calls because more people can pull up a property on the internet. And I want to dispel that rumor. I have seen the numbers. Friends, sign calls are alive and well. You need to have a sign in the yard. It needs to have big, clear numbers so everyone knows who to call. And if you put your MOFR on it, which is make offer for immediate response, that's going to get the phone to ring even more. And then the key, and I know it sounds simple, but I'm going to say it again. Answer the phone when it rings and immediately provide value. That's how you meet new buyers. By the way, congratulations, Rookie of the Year. The VH1 is making a TV show, Where Are They Now? And you've been found. But so many of them don't go on to then have the success that you did. So when do you look up and what's the epiphany that you have, which lays the foundation for what you've built today?
I had a conversation a few months before that with the manager of the office, and she was a big deal in real estate. I think she still is a big deal in real estate here in LA. And I wasn't having any success. And one thing I will say is that they had a great training program, but the training program was literally go open an escrow and then we'll help close the escrow. So like we did contracts inside and out, but there was no training on how do you actually get to contract. But I remember I came in one day and I was a little frustrated and she basically said, "You're fired." And I said, "Well, okay, I don't really get paid to work here, so that's fine." I said, "Well, like, what am I doing wrong?" And she was like, "You have to treat this like a real job. You have to work 40 hours a week." Haha, that worked out well. She said, "You have to be in the office at 8:30. They had a dress code. You had to dress up, not like how I'm dressed today, but you have to get dressed and you have to be here at 8:30 and you can quick lunch and you can go home at 5 unless you're showing properties." And that was like a big, this is a real job. There's no structure and I'm totally on my own, but I have to actually treat it like a real job. And to this day, I'm still like, when I'm in the office, like I'm here at 8:30 and it's empty.
That's so interesting to me. So for whatever the reason, her telling you that gets you to wake up the next day and put some new rituals around work into your life.
Yeah, just really thinking about it like, is real estate flexible? Yeah, it's very flexible. And it's also not flexible. Like if I'm not here at 8:30, another agent is here at 8:30 and they're going to take my deal, right? So just being like, this is a real job, but you're entirely on your own, right? Like treat it like a 40-hour week job.
So what's the thing that y'all do so well in your organization?
Well, I didn't want to spend money on advertising because I didn't really have any money. And goes a long way when I joined KW and took the training there. I never really had a lot of money for budgeting for advertising. I had friends who were spending enormous sums on flyers and et cetera, door knocking and postcards and mailers and party and all this stuff. And I just said that's like a really expensive way to do it. It didn't make sense in my head. So I heard our good personal friend Gary Keller say about real estate success is about mastering the boring. And part of it started at my old company and it really matured here where I just heard Gary say that several times. And it just really struck with me. Like, I don't need to, and I'm not saying door knocking is wrong or farming is wrong or people have different pathways to success. For me, it just made sense to like, I'm not going to go spend a lot of money on marketing. I'm going to go get really good about being purposeful about follow-up and building relationships. I heard Gary talk about, I don't think he said moat in a long time, but I've been to maybe 12 or 13 family reunions, something like that. And I just kept hearing him say, build a moat around your database. Success is mastering the boring. And I'm like, this is exactly what I need to do in my business.
Okay, well then tell me exactly how you all do it. I'm sitting out there and I'm driving 110 miles an hour in my Range Rover and I'm listening to you and I want to have deeper relationships with my database. By the way, friends, before he answers, let me remind you, you do not have to take the notes. Don't turn the auto driver on the Tesla. Instead, just let me take the notes. You can get them on MREAnotes.com. The notes come out on Thursday and I have a pen and a pad and we are about to enter the lab. Richard, exactly how do you do it?
So I think everything starts with this idea that, when we spend money on something, we hold it accountable to a return, right? Sort of like red light, green light, right? So if Jason, if I go and spend $1,000, $5,000, $10,000 on postcards or an event, I'm going to hold it responsible to a return. And that's obviously that makes sense. I think what we don't do is we don't hold our own time responsible for a return. And so I'm always coaching my agents or thinking myself about, well, what is my time worth, right? So if I go to an open house, right? Open house in my mind takes about 5 hours out of your Sunday. And Sunday is like, holiday time. Sunday's time and a half time, right? Sunday's triple time. It's Christmas Eve. We're getting triple time today for working these hours. If I go work 5 hours and I meet you, Jason, right? You might only get 1, 2, 3 decent leads at an open house. That's the goal, right? I was always trained, you get one good lead in an open house, it's a win. I just invested 5 hours times my expected income, which if I want to make 100K is, let's call it $75 an hour. I just invested almost $400 in my time on you. You owe me $400, how I think about it, right? I'm not a sociopath, right? But I earned your contact info and I'm going to hold it responsible. So I'm going to expect to get a return out of that. I'm going to follow up with you. I'm going to give you value, right? I'm going to just try to solve your problem. Your problem is you need a house. Houses are expensive. They're not as good as you want them to be. I'm going to continue to work to solve that problem. and I'll follow up with you for months and months and months and years. I got an email yesterday from a guy who I was a buyer agent on his house in LA when it was like 500K in a nice neighborhood. So it's probably 15 years ago. And I've been emailing and calling and texting for 15 years. I don't think he's responded more than 3 times. And yesterday he emails me, want to sell house, call me.
Okay.
Now you got to wait 15 years to get there. But that's the whole model, is like, I'm going to follow up with you forever.
Okay. And I love that, by the way. And I have visions of you sitting there doing that forever. And it's so simple to say, Richard, but that doesn't make it easy. So walk me through actually how you do it, because is it Post-it notes? Are there popsicle sticks? Are you using a CRM? Is it purposeful about who you call? What the heck are you telling them when you do? Are you sending them mail? Are you sending them email? Is it just text? Walk me through how I can go get this sort of response from my database.
So first of all, I want to say it is easy to do. It's way easier. My agents, I have a sales team, and my agents are like, I want a door knock. Other people are making it work. It's not my model. It's not a model I see working in our market here. To me, that sounds hard, right? To me, this sounds easy. I can sit here at my computer and I can just relentlessly follow up with people. So it's easy. We use inbox zero, so I never miss responding to someone. I use Gmail snooze, which is a great feature. So if I email you and you say, hey, call me in November, I just snooze you to October 1st, right? And I use the database, and the database, gives me a list every day of who am I going to call today? Who am I going to email today? Who am I going to text today? And they never leave the database until you tell me in a TCPA compliant way, until you tell me, hey, Richard, don't ever contact me again. You're going to hear from me.
Okay, let's get sequential, because I'm sitting here and I'm thinking, okay, cool. The first step in your world is actually get a database fast. Like, I have to have a database in order to nurture it. Talk me through how you think about that.
Yeah, so that is the first step, really. So we missed that. But I think the ideal size for a database is about 400 to 600 people. We call it the Trader Joe's rule. I mentioned it before. It's really, you want to just be able to know those people. I walk into Trader Joe's, I'm like, oh, there's Jason. He's looking for a condo in Santa Monica, right? He called me a year ago. Maybe I don't recognize your face, but if you said, hey, I'm Jason Abrams, I'd be like, oh yeah, you called in on an open house sign a year ago, and I've been emailing you back and forth. I actually was on an international flight one time, and the flight attendant had been emailing me about buying a condo, and he recognized my name on the ticket and bumped us to first class. Still hasn't bought anything from me, but I did get the first class seat out of it. But that's how much I've been emailing him.
So when an agent joins your world and you say, great, go get a database of 600 people, and they look back at you and say, but I don't know 600 people. What do you say to them?
First of all, I'd say for most people, it starts with your sphere. I keep it very simple, right? Most people, if you're working in the area where you grew up in, you have a sphere. And the sphere is everyone. It's a huge mistake people make to not include everyone. Or I think we make inappropriate assumptions sometimes. We say, oh, well, that person can't afford to buy a house ever. I can't tell you how many people who I never would have thought buy a house. They marry well. They do well in business. They inherit a property. Everyone in the world wants to buy or sell real estate at some point in their lives in the United States, right? I've never met someone that doesn't want to own real estate. That's all you need. So everyone goes in the database. No one doesn't go in the database. If you're in an area you grew up in, it's your elementary school. I do a lot of business with my elementary school, my high school, my college friends. I went to college not so far from here. All those people are in the database. My parents' friends. If you can do that, that's your entire business. I would tell you, spend the next 3 days, load everyone into your database, and just start calling them and asking them to meet you for coffee. And that will take you the rest of the year.
Okay, well, that kind of leads us into step 2. You told me step 2 was getting personal with these people fast. And you actually used the term, you have to activate them. What do you mean by that?
You want to be in a relationship with your clients so that when they're ready, people buy a home or sell a home based on a non-financial moment typically. They have an emotional challenge, which may turn into a financial challenge. So you want to be in front of them all the time, because that moment, we never know. We never know when that moment's going to come for us. It could be good. Unfortunately, a lot of times those moments are bad, but those things happen. We need to be in front of them. We need to be seen as a source of value for the client. So if I'm calling you, hey, Jason, you want to buy a house? Hey, Jason, it's a great time to buy a house. Hey, Jason, interest rates are down. You want to buy a house? So it's always value. It's always, here's some information. And then people will contact you when they're ready, in my experience. The only thing you can do to adjust that is if they maybe have a misperception about the market, we want to help educate them. But I've never made a sales call in 21 years of real estate. I never sell anything. I just offer value, and then people ask me to buy a house or sell a house.
I love that. And this idea of getting personal. Are you only talking real estate with these people, or are you like friends with these folks?
Ultimately, you want to become friends with them because, as we know from Gary, people work with people they know, like, and trust. I'm a big agent now. We're one of the highest unit count teams in the LA area. And my number one competition is not the other big agent, right? It's not the other Richard out there. My number one competition is the unqualified friend of the client because people are hiring people they know, like, and trust. So that's a win for my newer agents. How do you get a business as a new agent? Well, people hire you if they like you. So I coach my agents go out to coffee with all these people. And some people, like I have people who are friends of mine now who I met through Trulia selling homes. It sounds weird actually when I said it out loud, but you become actually friends with them. Some people you're just acquaintance with and you build a relationship, but it's far more important to build a relationship than to quiz someone about their home search or brag about how good you are or what certification that you might have. My agents asked me, we have a listing packet, a magazine quality listing packet that we bring. And my agents wanted one for buyers. And I said, your buyer presentation is go to coffee, meet someone at a Starbucks, sit down with them and become their friends and talk about real estate for 3 minutes. If you become their friend or become someone they can know, like, and trust, then everything else is easy. And I'm going to save like $8 printing that magazine and quality buyer packet out.
First of all, genius. That line that you just said is genius. So I get my database to between 4 and 600. Now I'm getting personal with it by adding value and contacting them. The next step that you kind of taught me surprised me, which is pare it down, which is go from the actives and recognize the inactives. Walk me through what you mean and how I do it.
Okay, so basically, yeah, so your journey is your database goes up and then up quickly to 600. You're always pushing new leads in and bad leads out. And the bad leads, you still have a follow-up program for those. We have a new agent and he got like 7 nurtures out of 500 dead leads. Like there's always something in there, right? That's another story. As your career progresses, at some point for me, I think it was around 2012 or 13, my partner Peter and I had sold probably 250 bank-owned short sale homes to buyers. We were like 95% buyers because no one would hire us to get listings because we were like 20, not very old, 27, 28, like something like that. We just could not get any listings, but we were just knocking down REO buyers left and right. And one day we looked up, we're like, wow, we have like 7 listings and they're all homes we sold. And that was like a big aha for us. So as your career progresses, as you help people buy a home, those homes eventually get sold. My first home sale, the up call, unfortunately, that was also my third sale because one of the D's happened and they needed to sell the house quickly. So, that home got resold 3 months later. So if you go out and sell my market 10, 12 homes a year, a lot of your markets, Mike's and Nicola from last week, you go to Cleveland and sell 1,000 homes a year, some number of those people are going to resell their home the next year and the next year and the next year. And then you wake up one day and your business is entirely reselling homes that you've represented the buyer on and very strong referrals from those people. And so we call those, you liked it at MegaCamp, the non-competitive listing appointment. If I represent you, Jason, in buying a home and I email you for 10 years, I send you a notepad and a card and blah, 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 and I probably give you 15 touches a year for 10 years, and you call me to sell your home, I'm probably not going to have a competitive listing appointment to get your deal. And when that happens, your database just naturally thins out because maybe you take on a team or a partner or a junior agent, but all of a sudden, like I don't have any time to do anything else other than just help the people that are reselling homes that I already sold them.
I love that. And by the way, it makes perfect sense that there's going to be this organic thing, which is my database is going to get bigger and bigger. Then I'm going to provide value. Then I'm going to have to pare it down if I want to maintain personal contact. Now, that doesn't mean those people get ignored. They simply, in your world, get passed to another agent on your team who might start that relationship.
And we make it clear to the client that the service product is better for them, right? They're getting a really hungry, motivated agent with our models and systems. And I'm still here. Like if something needs my attention, which I don't think it really ever does, but I'm still here and they get a better service product than that. And they understand that and they appreciate that. We don't really lose a lot of business that way because we sell them on like, hey, remember when I met you, I was driving a Prius around like a crazy person doing 30,000 miles a year. Now we have like 5 full-time staff and a business plan and websites and blah, blah, blah. We can actually do a great job selling your home.
It's really cool.
You shouldn't have hired me then, but now you should definitely hire me.
You're right. Now I'm the actual professional that I convinced you I was then.
Exactly.
You told me the last step was to prove it with Google reviews.
Yeah.
Why does that matter? And how do you do that effectively?
People like reviews. People look online for reviews, and it's funny because some of the reviews are clearly not ours, but you go online, you see reviews that are fake. You see negative reviews that are clearly lunatics. I've got a few of those. I got some good ones in there somewhere. But people want social proof advertising. That's just when we painted homes. The first thing you did was you put a sign in the ground to let them know the house was being painted, and you would always get calls on the sign. So we call it, I didn't call it, someone else called it social proof advertising. And it works even if it's not someone that they know. The random person on the internet said Richard's a good real estate agent. We very aggressively pursue reviews. This is all just the greatest hits album today.
I want to stop you right there because you've mentioned Ben Kinney's, you've mentioned Mike Hicks, you've mentioned Gary Keller. Some might look at you that are uncouth, Richard, perhaps, and just say, man, you're just a copycat. You don't have a single original bone in your body. What would you say to them?
I don't care. It's fine. Go for it.
Well, okay, that's a big idea. You could have went out and tried to create all of this from scratch. You've either A, never had that urge or realized that the greatest creative people start by copying and then making incremental changes. Which was it?
I try to take the best parts of what I see from other people and use them for my own business, right? So someone who's a great farm agent, it's just not my journey. I might see something that they do that I like, but it's not, but I see the promise script. I see the other thing that we were doing buyer agency from Agent Mountain. That's a really dated reference. From Nikki Ubaldini was doing Agent Mountain. We were doing buyer agreements in 2009, I think. We would sit people down at the office and have them sign a buyer agency agreement, 15 years ahead of the curve, because we thought that made sense.
It sounds counterintuitive, doesn't it? That the most creative people are often the best copycats, but it isn't. And do you know why? Because people have lived before you. They've succeeded before you. They've had ideas before you. They've tried things before you. And so it's absolutely, in my opinion, crazy town to go and think that you're going to come up with only original new ideas and you're going to create everything from scratch. Friends, you know one of the reasons you love this show? Because you're getting tried and true systems that you can take and put into practice in your life and in your business. Then over time, you can certainly improve on them. We've heard that as a theme time and time again. What's Richard Schulman's real genius? His real genius is being self-aware enough to know that the people around him are also geniuses. And he waits until he sees actionable items that he can take and then put immediately into his business. You know the worst advice I ever got in life? Someone looked at me and said, "Kid, don't ever change." And they said it in a really nice way, as if to say, you're great the way you are. That's the worst advice in the world. Change is a good thing. Augmenting what you do is a good thing. Tweaking what you do is a good thing. But starting from scratch, instead of starting from where somebody else left off that's already having great results, that makes no sense to me. Gary Keller tells me all the time, the best innovators are the ones who are willing to copy and improve, not create from scratch.
The number one challenge I have is I get some really smart people who come to work for me, and smart people are a problem because they think that they can do it better. And it's like, I'm doing the exact same thing right now, other than DocuSign and whatever app that we're on right now. I'm doing the exact same thing in my business that I was doing in 2004. There's nothing different, right? Like, call people, build relationship, show up, DocuSign, no triplicate form. So it's not a business that needs to be reinvented. It just needs to be perfected.
I love it. Richard, let's switch gears. I want to tell you a real estate story, and I want to go back to ancient Greece. There was a philosopher named Epicurus, and he bought a home in downtown Athens. Beautiful place, but a bustling city. He then built out an amazing garden, and to this garden, he invited the greatest thinkers of his day to contemplate some of the deepest thoughts. This became known as Epicurus's garden, which is still celebrated today. Richard, I want to invite you to join our garden. Will you play?
I don't think I have a choice. Let's do it.
Richard, how many kids do you have?
4.
When you look up and over the next 30 years, what's the one thing you want most for your children?
Just want them to be happy and do what they choose to do in life.
And what rituals have you put into place to make sure that while running this giant business, you get enough time with them?
If you know me, you know I don't know anything about soccer, but I coach all the kids in their youth soccer. That's like our best thing to do together. And we watch Survivor together. Those are like our core things that we don't miss on.
Now that you've went on the journey from having a little bit of money to having an abundance of it, what does money mean to you in your life?
Money means what Gary and Jay and you taught it to me. Money is how you fund a lifestyle that you want to live. I've been to Austin so many times, maybe 40 times. I mean, too many times to go to Austin probably. But money is, not possessions. As you can tell, this is like a 10-year-old hoodie. Money is what it can buy you. It can buy you time and ability to do something. So we can choose to do things we want to do. So if we want to travel or just be on like 12 soccer teams for 3 kids like we're doing right now, that's something else we can do.
Last question. You have a business model that is literally built on relationships. So I'm going to phrase it like this. For a man who has spent a lifetime building relationships, is there any one that you're going to be focusing on over the next few years more than another?
I think I need to focus on, I have a 12-year-old now. I think you have a 12-year-old or so. And I just looked up one day. I hate when people told me this. Like, oh, that happened. So I just looked up and I'm like, oh, I have a 12-year-old. Like, I got a 10-year-old. That 10-year-old's almost a 12-year-old, as you know. We have this like photo screen in the kitchen, and it's all these pictures of the kids when they were like 4 and 6. And they're much cuter, as you know, when they're 4 and 6 than when they're 12. And it's like, oh, that's done. That's in the past. And so I need to really focus on that now because that's something I'm not going to get back. Sorry to put it down.
Not at all. Richard, that was exactly what I was hoping for. My friend, you have just entered and survived the garden. Thank you for joining us. Richard, I got to tell you, you are a friend to all real estate agents, and it turns out a damn deep thinker. Thanks for everything you're doing for the industry.
Yeah, thanks for having me. Appreciate it.
I think that last statement that he said is so poignant. When you think about your life, it seems to be moving at an incredible rate while you look back on it. This is to say that life only seems to move faster when you're reviewing the life that you already lived. And Richard kind of said that, which is I look up, I see my kid who's now 13 years old. It's only then that I realize how fast it all went. When you're actually in the moment and you're living it, it doesn't feel like it's moving at that speed. Here's what I believe. A life visited on a regular basis will put into perspective the speed by which it's going because your mind fools you on a daily basis. I'll prove it to you. I want you to look back in time at when you were in high school. Now keep your eyes on the road, but look back in time. Do you see what just happened the minute that you did it? You realize how quickly it's all been moving, but while you're living it, it doesn't feel that way. That's why we have to revisit and remember our lives purposefully on a regular basis. I love the whole conversation with Richard. I mean, the idea that you build a database and he ties a number of 600 to it. Then you get super personal with the people in it because people do business that they like. They do business with people they trust. They do business with others that make them feel good about themselves. Then you pare it down, meaning at some point it's just so full of names that you don't have enough time to give everybody equal credence. So you pare the thing down and then prove it with Google reviews. I know that it sounded simplistic as he was explaining it, but friends, if you complicate it, that's 100% on you. It really is that easy. Friends, we asked you to visit MREAnotes.com and record your questions. We got a great one from Devin Doherty. Take a listen.
Hey, Jason, what's the number one limiting belief that a new agent has that prevents them from moving into real estate full time, and how do you overcome it? How do you help an agent get to the point where they can make that transition from part-time to full-time? Thanks.
We got a great question, Devin. I absolutely love that. Here's the answer. Oftentimes, the biggest limiting belief is simply the fear of walking away from whatever it is they're doing now. And here's what I mean. Fear is an emotion of the future. That's what Gary Keller teaches us. You're not afraid of the past. You don't wake up terrified of what's already happened. You're not usually even afraid in the present. Fear comes when you think about the unknown. You get anxiety, you get fear, you're scared, your mind plays through every possibility of why this thing won't work. And so what's the biggest limiting belief keeping someone from jumping into this industry full time? It's the fear of not knowing they're going to succeed. And I can remove 100% of that fear if you would let me do it. And here's why. Because the path is always in the math. Every single person within the sound of my voice can 100% exceed any goal that they set in this industry, as long as they understand the math behind it and then do the activities. I'm going to make this real simple. Everyone that I've interviewed has told me the same thing. Jason, at the end of the day, this all comes down to the number of people you talk to about real estate. That's it. Everything you hear on this show is all about different ways to find the people to talk to. Here's the misnomer about the real estate industry. It's actually two businesses. One of those businesses generates leads of people that want to buy and sell real estate. The other is the service arm to make sure that those people have the most amazing fiduciary experience ever. It is only the fear of not having enough clients that keep people from jumping into the industry, and it is that fear that can be completely aligned by using math. Friends, here's the takeaway. Whether you do it like Richard Schulman with relationships, or you do it through open houses, or you do it through simply standing on a street corner with a sign that says, "Talk to me about real estate," you will succeed as long as you talk to enough people about it. Go forth and do likewise. There it is. That wraps another episode. Friends, I don't know what you're taking out of this. I really don't. I'll tell you what I want you to be taking out of it, which is these are the people that are having tremendously big lives. And the reason it's happening is because they're setting up the models and systems to do just that. Gary Keller told me that leadership is teaching people how to think so that they do the things they need to do when they need to do them, so that ultimately they get the things they want when they want to have them. And that's what I want for you. You're all leaders, but it begins with leading ourselves. If you're enjoying this podcast, I want you to click the subscribe button anywhere that you get your podcasts. We want to be the voice in your head every single week, and every week we're dropping new content. We also send out a newsletter at the conclusion of every show to make sure that you get the highest points and the models and systems that were discussed. So if you want to sign up, I need your name and your email address. Head over to the millionaireagentpodcast.com. millionaireagentpodcast.com. Enter your name and your email address, and every week that newsletter will be in your box. Friends, you just went on a journey. I hope that what happens between now and the next time we meet is absolutely wonderful for you. Thanks for listening. I'll see you next week.
This podcast is for general informational purposes only. The views, thoughts, and opinions of the guest represent those of the guest and not KWRI and its affiliates, and should not be construed as financial, economic, legal, tax, or other advice. This podcast is provided without any warranty or guarantee of its accuracy, completeness, timeliness, or results from using the information. Warning. You must comply with the TCPA and any other federal, state, or local laws, including for B2B calls and texts. Never call or text a number on any do not call list, and do not use an auto dialer or artificial voice or pre-recorded messages without proper consent. Contact your attorney to ensure your compliance.